way so far, but at long last, we're finally ready for week number 6 of the Quake Pro League. Welcome everybody watching the stream. My name is Ketchup and I'm joined on the desk for the first time in a long time by the very talented ZSX. How's it going, bro?
Really good to be back. Missed you, man.
It has been an exceptionally long time. I don't think we've really shared the desk since like DreamHack 20... Was it 2017?
2018, maybe.
2018, but it was a long time.
It's 2020 now, so I don't...
My memory, I know, the fact that we're even in 2020 is messing me up. Yeah. But either way, we've got a bunch of games lined up. The players should hopefully be nice and refreshed. And it's, for lack of a better term, back to our scheduled programming. We're starting the show off with Xron versus CNZ. So that's going to be quite a cracker to kickstart the show with. And we have a bunch of other great games lined up as the show progressively goes on. But I mean, fundamentally, Quake Pro League, we're still in business hour. Stage 2 is all about the round robin. Everyone has to play against everyone, setting up the constant kind of weekly activity, bigging up maybe potential next matches, and some of them are potentially happening today. But, I mean, we've got the schedule to go through. We have kind of, the basic rundown of what everyone's going to expect, which we'll get into in due time. But fundamentally, it's just another stream of duel, isn't it, Dan?
Just a lot of duels to go.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Some good games, though.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Any matchups you're particularly excited for?
I think couple. I think Cypher Havoc is obviously a really great game. I think we spoke about before. We've got Nostfa Dewey that you're particularly excited for.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, for me, it's because Nostfa had an amazing start in Quake Pro League, and he's still, recognized as a top player in the Americas region, but he's been a little bit inconsistent since it very, very first began. How much of that is related to his new location, who knows? I know he was in Texas, I think, for the first bit, so he was super in tune and ready to play. But Dewey coming onto the scene in Stage 2, which not a lot of people were super sure about at first, because you hear Dewey's coming back and everyone's like, well, it's great to have Dewey back, but what's his shape looking like? And it turns out his shape is better than it's arguably ever been. Exactly. So Nostfa being recognized as an early America's god, and then Dewey returning, almost looking to kind of take his place, right? Take that sort of mantle within kind of top 4 of the Americas, which he's right now more than doing a good job of proving, I think. But we have stuff to show you in due time. We can find out what matches are going to be. But I mean, starting off with the CNZ versus Xron, that's an interesting matchup too.
I was going to say that would be my other matchup I'd pick for the day, for sure. They're both very talented duelers, and I think it's a matchup you look at that where many people might not pick it out as one of the more exciting ones, but it is, for me, particularly good. They're both very tactful, and I think it depends which CNZ turns up, because sometimes he's been completely outstanding and other times he's been completely steamrolled. So I'm going to put my money on Xron 2-1.
Well, it's been quite a significant breakaway, so hopefully that's been enough for CNC to get into the shape that he's familiar with, right? We have the leaderboards to show you. We can find out what the scores are currently and what the players are going to be, I think, currently aiming towards. And so far, it's what we expect to see. Rafa sitting very comfortably at the top. Brazy, Kilson, Dehang, Wenger, Cooler. I mean, these are all household names. I know Base got quite an important victory for himself recently, putting himself within that top 7, which has made quite a significant difference as players now earn more points in Stage 2 than they did in Stage 1. And then, as we are in week number 6, we now start to, I suppose, really pay attention to potentially the lower end of this leaderboard, and the players that aren't doing so hot for points really do need to step it up, and they've got to try and get some big wins. And because of this round robin stage, there's no opportunity where you're going to face off against a player you can 3-0 more than once. You have to really go against the entire pack, and if you are players like Genic or Waz, there's a little bit of attention needing to be played, because that's a low point of the leaderboard.
Yeah, and as you said, that's where the real scramble is to keep alive in this format. There's a couple of, not anomalies, but kind of different positions where I'd expect people to see. Wenger sitting above Cooler, obviously a newer guy to the scene, but setting the world alight in a minute. That's definitely one I would expect to be the other way around. And Tox as well, sitting in that mid-range. So hot, cold. It'd be really great to see him come back. I know he's got a week off this week, but to come back a bit stronger. And pushing down at the bottom end, we got Dramis down there. I've been really impressed some of the times I've watched Dramis. And so if he can keep that consistency up, I think he can be pushing up in the higher ranks.
It's all about progression too, isn't it, ZSX? But fundamentally, one of our matchups today, Effortless versus Dramis, is a matchup that we're going to be seeing on tonight's broadcast. Look at how close they are on the leaderboard, 60 points to 56. Right. If either of those two players is able to secure a 3-0, when you're deadlocked with the player that you're against on the leaderboards, making sure you get a 3-0, it's just best case scenario, because you're getting the maximum amount of points and your opponent gets absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and look, there's only really 17 points between 17th and 10th. Getting a 3-0 can really ram you up towards the top of the leaderboard particularly quickly. So, as you say, extremely important that every single map counts in these smaller matches.
Especially now we are dawning on week number 6. We're just about to kickstart this. There's not a lot of these left before we go into the Stage 2 finals. So if you can avoid relegation, stay within that mid-level, potentially better seeding if you're on that mid-level, especially if you're a little bit higher up. And if you're on the bottom side of either of the two regions, I mean, that's relegation matches. Let's not forget the Challenger Series is forever ongoing on a weekly basis, and there are some incredibly talented players that are winning and doing well in the Challenger Leagues. So if we see those players turn up to Stage 2, you're never safe. Now, that is the entire thing about Quake Pro League, is that if you are one of the, I guess, lowest performers in the league, there's always going to be hungry competitors just waiting to steal your spot away from you, which I find really exciting.
Yeah, it's super competitive in there, and as you say, if you drop down, there's a good chance you might not come back up, and the people coming up can really disrupt that order. There isn't really much to play, much separating really outside top 5. Obviously, the top 5 are almost running away with it right now, but outside of that, it's anyone's game.
All right, so I believe we should have the schedule so we can find out what today's matches are going to be. I know it was on the countdown, but we're going to run through it now all the same. Match number 1 is Xron versus CNZ. Effortless versus Dramis up next. And it's crazy to see such a pivotal match actually happening as match number 2. You love to see it. Cypher versus Avec, the Bros showdown. Good friends going head-to-head. And then match 4, Nospa versus Dewey. This is quite a top-heavy kind of first half of the stream, considering both how exciting the matches are and in other cases how important they are for the players involved.
Yeah, they're all super important. You look at the ranking between them and they're all very, very close to each other. So as we said, a flip-flop one way or the other can really disrupt the ordering.
Now I can see we should be going into the next set first, but have a bit of a chat about some of the matches in greater detail. Cypher versus Avec. I know there's a lot of Quake fans out there that are really excited for that one, because I think it's just going to be a display of talent. Avec is, I think, one of the players that is looking a little bit more concerned in Stage 2, which we say this every week because it's generally quite surprising. I think a lot of people out there would have probably expected Avec to do a little bit better in Quake Pro League. He is one of the Pro League is the best in the world, right? But that doesn't stop Avec from being legendary status in his own right.
Absolutely,
one of the sort of top Quake players, not just in Quake Champions, but across other games where he was considered just that natural talent, that natural ability. Cypher, another one of those players who has had that return to glory, which I think he spent the last 3 years trying to get, and he's finally managed to get it. Shouts to Time Limit Duel for making all that difference. But fundamentally, it's a matchup with two good friends that are both very good, and we can expect a fun match from it.
Yeah, and Havoc has really been blowing hot and cold. I think playing at Cypher, as you say, being his friend and one of his training buddies will definitely help that for sure. And potentially playing in a more classical sense as well might play a bit more into Havoc's hands. And he's one of the players I love to watch. And so I definitely hope he turns up today. But in the day, it's going to be a spectacle of skill. If you want to learn Quake and what it's all about, I think that's one of the matchups to watch for sure. Okay,
so that was just the first half of tonight's action. We have got the second half coming up, match 5 and beyond. We can find out what they're going to be. Rafa versus Waz. I actually have to mention that was due to, I think, player scheduling. That is our only match of tonight that was pre-recorded. However, we do not know what the scores were, so it's going to be played live, and none of us know what happened, but it will not be played live as a matchup. Wenger versus Base, Cooler versus Razy, and then finishing things off with Dahang versus Genik.
Cooler versus Razy could be a really interesting one. Obviously, Razy is sometimes unbeatable, but Cooler's one of the people he's had problems with, so going into that is definitely going to be one of the more entertaining games. Love to see Wenger. I think he should walk that one a little bit, but again, it really depends on what base has turned up, because we've seen him blow so hot and cold. Rafa Waz, one would expect Rafa to walk that one a little bit easy, similar with Dahang Genik. Unfortunately, if you see the rankings, they're there for a reason. Rafa's number 1, very, very good reason, and Dahang, extremely strong. Can sometimes be underrated, but I definitely think he should be both of those matchups. Could be a 3-0 for me.
Yeah, Genik was a player that made a real name for himself in the Stage 1 challenges. The first player to actually confirm himself for the Stage 1 finals in Italy. If memory serves me correctly, did make Dahang sweat when they played on the LAN setting, but that was after the first map. Dahang kind of really had a grasp on things after that, and it looked like an entirely different player. But that's quite a common thing, that players that have their breakout breakout performances at a LAN setting, or they're able to finally put themselves on a map. But it's all about the game of stamina and endurance, and that's what these more experienced players, I think, when they just have experience in droves and they don't tend to burn out during matches. And that's one of the interesting talking points for me is we've had a significant gap in between week 5 and 6. You know, the holiday season and the new year. There was quite a break there, and I think a lot of these players use that as an opportunity to kind of take your foot off the gas and recharge those batteries. An entire year of competitive Quake, if you're playing the game every single week of the year, that will maybe take its toll on some people. You know, there are some players like a Cooler that could probably play 10 hours a day and it will never phase them, but some of the other players probably need that time to recover. So tonight I find quite an interesting one. We'll see if it makes a difference here.
Yeah, and it really depends on how they use that time. If they took it away and used it to refresh and they come back looking sharper, then that's great. If they used it to practice and they've improved some things, that's great too. Notice Rafa picking Athena and Scale Bearers. Is he going out there to try some new tactics in one of these easier games for Rafa, and has he used that period of time to kind of perfect some new strategies? I guess we'll see today.
I mean, if you're going to be going for grinding new champions, and we know that Rafa's been using Athena quite a fair amount, mostly on things like the Blood Covenants and stuff, but always the opportunity to see some new tech come out. But we have a good time now to chat about the first matchup, CNZ versus Xron. I think we'll be talking about Xron first. And Xron, I feel like he's looked better in Stage 2 than he has Stage 1.
Yeah, I think he's got his mojo back a little bit. I've been really impressed with his performances so far. I think he took the series from Kilson a few weeks ago, if I remember rightly, and very much deservedly so. And he's one of these players that has that potential to take maps, to take full series of absolutely anyone. His aim is on par with the best in the world. And strategically, he's one of the more creative players you'll see, taking up new challenges and positionings, and he's a bit of an innovator, and that's why he's so interesting to watch, because I think many people often underestimate watching Xron. And so, again, really, really great player to watch.
There's the element of confidence. When you think of like potential negatives here, it's mostly if Xron is not feeling himself, that tends to be reflected quite heavily in his gameplay. But when he's not really, when that kind of air of negativity isn't kind of around his head, that black cloud, if you will, when that gets cleared up, it just looks like an entirely different player. And then he's really happy about it though, right? Depending on his mood, I think, will dictate his performance in game. And if he's feeling confident, it's fantastic. If he says in interviews prior, I'm not really confident in my rail, he tends to not hit a lot of rails the next time he plays, because you almost feel like he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
And the second someone thinks about something, they're paying more attention to it than, you miss those tiny little flicks or whatever it might be.
It's one of those things you can't objectify, right? That there are some players that are so momentum-based, so confidence-based, so feel-based. I think Toxic is one of those that comes to mind, that if he gets his groove on and he's feeling himself, he's able to take the duel to the next level and really dominate maps. Whereas other players like Cooler, it doesn't matter what condition he's in mentally, he's always prepared to think about the game in a certain way, where he isn't a passionate player, I don't think, in that sense, where he doesn't need to feel the game. He analyzes it and he thinks about it in a different way. And so it really depends on what type of play style. Like me personally, I've always been more of the momentum pace, where it's more feeling and rather than going into a game with a strategy. And so I think Xron's one of those people where he plays extremely smart, and he obviously thinks about the game in a certain way. But as you say, it comes down to that gut feeling and his personality and his motivations on the day.
Well, Xron was only one half of today's series. We have CNZ up next, who has been kind of like a silent entry when we talk about players that made it in from challenges, because CNZ looked extremely comfortable in challenges, and in his relegation matches where he was able to take that position from Sparty in Italy, he just looks like, it looked like he'd been there the entire time. You'd never have guessed he had to earn his way into Stage 1, because he just looked so damn solid. But that said, you said it earlier, he's been a little bit hit and miss in Stage 2. I do strongly think he is naturally a talented player, extremely talented. There is just the element of the shark tank that exists in this side of the world for the league. Like, he truly is going against some absolute animals that are not easy to play against.
He's been slightly inconsistent, but that's also to be expected when you haven't played on this level for a long period of time. Yes, he's been in and around the scene for many, many years, back to the previous editions of Quake, but he's never had that. He's never excelled at the top level. And so coming in is always going to be a bit of a risk, and particularly when you're a bit of an unexpected player, people won't know what your play style is going to be. Nevertheless, I think many people categorize him or have done as quite a defensive player, and he's shown his game is far more rounded than that, and he's much more adaptive. Thinking back to a couple of weeks ago, he played against Base and 3-0'd him. He came out and was super aggressive and absolutely dominated that match. that whole map. Sorry. And so it really depends on what CNZ turns up, and if he can, again, as we said in the very opening, gain some consistency, I think he can really push on. Personally, I think he sits in a very similar camp to Xron, where many people might underestimate, even when you look at him in matchups, might not say he's going to be the favourite, and so that's why, for me, this is going to be one of the most close series of today.
It's always nice when you see two players of a similar air going head-to-head, because I think that's where the versatility gets tested. If you are a player that's more versatile than a Community All player might give you credit for, that's where it really has its biggest challenge, I suppose. But we should have the picks and bans very, very soon, so we can see what's coming through. The champions, and that's one of the things that Xron likes to, no pun intended, champion himself. We have the Molten Falls up first, Nyx versus Visor, Blood Covenant with the Slash. We rarely get to see Slash sometimes, because he seems to be quite a popular ban these days.
Yeah.
But it is going to be going up against CNZ's Ranger on that, and then finishing things up on the ruins of Sarnath, the Xron and the BJ. The second crouch sliding champion, though, was removed.
Yep, and Xron with his legendary Nyx, probably one of the best Nyx players in the world, and equally as strong on the Slash, particularly from his team playing days, whereas CNZ opts for the VQ3 champions with the traditional moveset, the medium champions. That's where his forte is. Hasn't really branched out. Nothing that I've seen to the more of the crouch sliding champions, the laser champions, or even the heavy champions. He likes that middle ground. You can play a much more traditional duel with those champions, and it definitely benefits his play style as well, whereas Xron is a bit more adventurous in the way he plays.
But I'm looking at some of the utility too, and for CNZ it's a lot more, I think, straightforward.
Sure.
If you think about the fact that the Visor is going to be used on Molten Falls, pretty common combination. It's a very large map, a lot of potential avenues you can go around. Piercing Sight makes a big difference, and against the Nyx, Piercing Sight can be quite a thorn in her side when used correctly. The Blood Covenant, Ranger versus Slash. Ranger's not going to quite have the immediate movement. Yes, that changes if he has the Orb, but the Orb can be used on some of those really important pickups to kind of just push yourself into those locations, which Slash, if she's in and out, it's going to be a bit tricky. Ruins of Sarnath, the Xron, that's, again, Xron really likes those kind of utility champions that Galena, another popular champion of his, hence Galena, was taken out. It's the kind of champion that Xron loves, champions that have extra utility, the extra stuff that you can place down that just get in the way. Maybe it benefits him, maybe it damages you, but it's because he's smart. He is a scientist in a lot of ways, and he's not shy of going into custom games and just looking for awkward positions to put things down that just get in the way. BJ can just blast right through that.
Exactly. And with Nyx Visor on the first map, that's not one of the traditional settings you'd normally see them. That matchup I would generally expect on a Blood Covenant or a Blood Run even. So it'll be really interesting to see how they play out on that map, and it often revolves around the vials and who can manage their cooldowns a lot more effectively. Whereas Ranger and Slash on Blood Covenant, that's all about positioning. Who can manage that mid ground better, because Slash has a very obviously almost equal capability to take across the two sides from bridge to the mid level. And as you say on the last map with Xron and BJ, Xron with that turret ability can do a good job for scouting and damage, whereas BJ can just blast his way through in those corridors as well with the dual wield. So really interesting matchups we got there.
Yeah, so we're about to find out how things are going to go. Map number 1, Xron versus CNZ. It's been a breakaway. We're finally back. I'm looking forward to watching some Quake. We're going to be checking out CNZ first, and now we're going to see what he chooses to do. Right, he's going to go for a little bit of a delay. But it kind of looked like Xron had somewhat similar ideas. There's not a huge divide in between those. The immediate fight breaks out, and the Piercing Sight used as a direct counter. And he goes in for the, I think, a wonderful read at the start. He knew he was going to chase Xron through, but Xron was expecting that. CNZ goes through the teleporter, already ready for the 180, and Xron, with some very tricky movement, manages to get his way out. That teleporter could have been a death sentence if he didn't make the right call at the end.
No, but great patience by CNZ. They could have quite easily have pushed into his death, but knows he's got the advantage. Nyx without any stack is always going to have to be on the back foot. And an aggressive pop of the Piercing Sight there, as he knows he got those vials a little bit earlier than Xron did, so he has some time before Xron's Ghost Walk is up. Great rocket coming out there. And Xron is really on the back foot. Can he get away? He's just sneaking around.
That was a pretty hidden angle. Crazy he still managed to hit the 100. Xron trying to be as tricky as possible with that wall jump, but it's not going to quite work out. as CNZ scores the first blood of today's first map. And it's perfectly timed. He's able to get himself the Mega, so he's not really weak. He knows there's a light armor up there to lick his wounds as well. But now we are going back to that classic Vial game. Piercing Sight's just about to come back.
And we saw the importance of picking up those Vials right off the bat. And really great awareness from CNZ so early on into this duel to recognize that he did have that advantage on the cooldowns already.
He did deliberately save the rest of the Vials near heavy.
Yep.
So if he needs to double back and grab, he can. But he does know that Xron's going to be nearby. The objective, do we go for the heavy? Do we concede it? Looks like CNZ's looking to spring the trap. He's confident in his stack. The rocket comes out, but the missed rail means that CNZ's in a perfect position to potentially beat him to the Mega. The race is on, and it does get taken at the last minute. What's CNZ going to do now? That's the question. Just try and get somewhat of a chase on so far. Xron trying to get in and out. Some rockets again, 100. CNZ's been hitting some fantastic damage on them.
Yep, and I think he does know that CNZ probably better. They do commit now. Xron's in a little bit of trouble, trapped in that corner, and he's going to go down. Great play by CNZ. He's controlling that upper ground extremely well, not overcommitting, and as you say, hitting some amazing rockets just to force CNZ back. Sorry, to Xron back.
I love the timing on the Piercing Sight too, just using it fresh off the spawn. If you catch a Nyx right off the spawn and she might not have the Ghost Walk or whatever it might be, she has a starting weapon, what's she going to do? There's really not much she can do to fight back except for try and run away. CNZ trying to take no risks, doubling back as much as possible. Minimal damage on the rockets in all honesty, so we can now try and lay that pressure on a bit more if he wants to. He knows that Xron's going to be weak with that Mega spawning up next. He's in a better position for it. Piercing Sight's available, but does he use it? Yes, he does.
And it's not just popping it off the spawn, it's also recognizing that that Xron, because Xron's cooldown is off cooldown, CNZ can pop it early and then get the Vials as a backup when he's sitting near them. And so he's getting almost double effectiveness out of this Piercing Sight.
Looking for another one. Doesn't quite get the rail. Xron would have survived it, yeah, sure, but the question is, what's he going to fall back on? CNZ's doing a wonderful job of keeping Xron just kind of weak. Too weak to be comfortable taking a fight, that's for sure.
This is one of the problems with Nyx, is that if your opponent is chipping down at you, there's nothing you can do because you are such a light champion. You can't commit to any fights, and CNZ is hitting some amazing shots, just keeping Xron at bay. And he doesn't need to overcommit, he knows that he's got him in trouble.
Now, speaking of which, Xron takes one of those rockets, but there's nothing else! No. Wonderful rocket to return! That could have been complete disaster, but he hits the money shot at the very end. It's now going to be 1-2. Oh, that could have been so easily disaster for Xron right there, but gets the shot he's looking for right at the end. What's he get from it, though? Heavy just about to spawn. He has to watch out for those rockets. They've been such a common problem. And now tries to run away, forced to retreat. He's going to have to give up the Heavy. No choice about that. And even with the Mega about to spawn, he has no armor.
Nope.
This is a very scary position to be in. Yeah, he just had to run away and let him take it. CNZ with full control and no Ghost Walk in sight. CNZ sees the Vials. He knows the Hourglasses haven't been taken, so hasn't got to worry about a Ghost Walk. Some excellent rockets, but is it going to be enough? CNZ is just so tanky at this point, and he's still railable with the health he has left. He has to watch out for that. Hits a rail, and he's able to get his way out. To double back and takes the Heavy. That was a nice little fight from Xron, and again, it's coming down to just hitting those shots. Now, if he missed a single one of those shots, I assume CNZ would have laid that pressure on even further.
Yeah, exactly. CNZ with some great opening rockets and damage, but Xron with the retaliation. He's going to run into trouble. He does have the Ghost Walk.
Is that going to keep him? No, actually choosing to be aggressive. He knows he has it, but the trade. Okay, and the trade's been taken. Hourglasses were taken just before. And now that Piercing Sight's going to get popped. Favorable spawn, but misses the rail. Could have been a lot more punishing, but CNZ choosing to just back out of there. Mega just about to spawn. CNZ in a better position to take it. And it looks like he should be able to collect quite easily. You know, we've gone past that 5-minute warning now. It's going to be 3-2. Not a huge amount separating these two players, but CNZ maintaining much more of a stack. You know, I feel like he has been in more control throughout the course of this map. Hits a great rail. Xron again forced to retreat.
No, absolutely. Xron has been on the back foot for virtually the entire time, but the fact that it is 3-2 is testament to Xron's both ability and the fact that he is hitting some great shots, keeping himself in the game, but almost full control now. PNZ. Wow, he catches Xron so off guard, but he does have the Ghost Walk up. Pops it just in time, and he has to back off, but now is a really critical time for Xron to stay alive.
It's almost one of the most unfortunate times to pop a Ghost Walk is like for no real advantage, for no real positioning. It's just to make sure that you don't die. It's certainly better than nothing because no one wants to give up a frag this late in the game, but...
No, but now you're essentially on the back foot for at least a minute, if not 2 minutes. So you need to play an exceptionally good positional game to keep out of sight and out of mind.
On the subject of sight, I feel like there's a real matchup coming into play here. Every time Xron has to retreat, it's not like he can use that downtime to try and stay hidden, because Visor can see where you are, roughly every 40 seconds or so, especially as CNZ is doing a great job of collecting these hourglasses, so he's always shaving time off his cooldown.
Yep.
Xron, he's trying to survive, but he knows, every X amount of time that CNZ will see exactly where he is, and he's not missing these shots.
No. And the way that CNZ is playing is forcing Xron to be exceptionally defensive.
Nice.
With his Ghost Walk. That it feels really bad as a Nyx when you just have to use that Ghost Walk defensively, when you cannot use it to pressure your opponent, to push onto items. The fact that he knows he has to hold on to it because CNZ is doing a great job of doing enough damage to keep Xron on the back foot.
It's almost a double-edged sword where if you have the frag lead, using it to disengage in this kind of instance maybe not be so bad because you can just run the clock and waste some time. But seeing as Xron has spent the entire map being behind, it's not like he's able to establish anything. And now, the chase from CNZ.
No, and CNZ now knows he doesn't need to overcommit. He's doing enough damage to keep Xron, again, as we said, on that back foot, but he just needs to maintain control of these items, because without them, there is literally nothing Xron can do without hitting some amazing shots.
He's done that so far. It's what's given Xron a couple of these frags is hitting these last-minute miracle rockets or rails so far. Actually, that's a really good rocket to make CNZ a little bit less comfortable. This heavy could be quite pivotal. A fair amount of damage was taken. Actually, Xron being aggressive. CNZ digging his heels in and staying put. That could have been a death rail. And using the Ghost Walk at the last second, but it might not save his skin, as it's going to be a comfortable chase down from CNZ, perfectly timed for the Mega, and now less than 2 minutes on the clock. This is worrisome. He has the rail, but he knows the rail's all he's got, so if we just stay close range, I mean, he's got to get real good to hit that rail there. That was a nice play from CNZ. Another favourable spawn. Xron constantly being caught with just nothing to fight back with.
Nope, and that was 2 perfect frags from CNZ. Almost textbook duel, using that piercing sight offensively to get the jump, chasing him down, and then understanding where he was going to spawn and pressuring that point. So, perfect back-to-back frags, and this is game in the bag now.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's just so much work left to do. Xron still having to sort of play that I just want to stay alive game. And now going around the corner. If he can score any frags here, I guess it's better than nothing, but this by all means is CNZ's map. A great way to start ZSX. I think I've enjoyed this one.
No, it was great, and I think it was almost like a 3-to-1 use of piercing sight to Ghost Walk, and as we said, that's never going to be a good situation for the Nyx when you do that. Very impressed by the way in which CNZ played this Visor, and it shows the power of having the stack differential in that there was nothing, absolutely nothing a Nyx could do when you were being outdamaged.
I feel like from a viewer's perspective, I've really kind of enjoyed watching the development of the champion matchups. I think there was a while where it was so heavily about the player versus player, and that still does stand true to this day, especially now Time Limit Duel is the duel that we all play. But in matchups like this, where you just get to see how an exceptionally talented Visor can give trouble to Nyx, who in some modes can be seen as a bit of a tyrant character. She can run rings around you if the player really knows what they're doing, but if you just have the right pick and you've got the right brain for it, you can make a champion that is often so dangerous look just another day in the office. That was such a perfect matchup, and it was perfectly executed by CNZ. A wonderful map number 1.
Yeah, really wonderful. I think one of the facets I was most impressed by was the patience shown. The fact that if you do overcommit, you can lose the map control so quickly, and if you lose map control against a Nyx, then you're in a world of pain. But as we saw, there was only really one period where CNZ overcommitted, and that was when he jumped down onto that Mega Health. But luckily, he got thrown so low that he could push onto the heavy armor following that. And we noticed that every single time he was hitting these initiation shots, he wasn't pushing in too fast. He was playing the positional game, making sure he had control of the map before finishing off the Nyx. And so that patience, as we can see here, paying dividends throughout.
It's hard to teach someone discipline, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's one of the unsung talents of a Quake player, is just that discipline to have such an attractive moment where I could go in right now, and I could get this frag now, because there's a good chance, but
exactly.
What if I don't? You know, what if I just sit back? There are so many players out there that I'm sure just the idea of being like, wait, why wouldn't I go in? You know, there's that side of their brain that just doesn't compute. But every time you watch the Quake Pro League, players like CNZ, it is that discipline that constantly comes through. You know, this moment here was one of my sort of personal favorite frags, knowing that Xron just spawned near rail. Realistically, it's the only weapon he can fight back with to try and get a kill there. And the play, you know, it's knowing what weapon's there at the time. He's got a rail, so what am I going to do? I'm going to go as close as possible to make that shot as awkward as it can be. Just, you know, that next level combat skill, I suppose.
Yeah, he just made sure he had strong positioning, map control, and he was able to bully Xron off the map. It was, again, a textbook way to play that map.
There is going to be some similarities, I think, with the next map we're about to see. You know, Blood Covenant. The champions are going to be significantly different. You know, we are going to see the Ranger versus the Slash now, and Xron's movement, one of, I think, his stronger suits with champions in general, because he's one of those players that every time a new champion would come out, you know, during the earlier stages of QC, he's always there just rinsing the champion, no matter what the movement is. Even if he, you know, maybe he's not very comfortable with the champion, he kind of almost forces himself to get good with movement. And with Blood Covenant, I think CNZ, if he's being as disciplined as he was on Molten Falls, Ranger's a good pick for that.
Ranger's a very good pick.
It's instant mobility and crazy damage when you want it.
Yeah, and you could see in the way he played that map, the way he likes to play a traditional duel, is he strong positioning, make sure positioning comes first, items come first, then he initiates the damage, and only when it's right did he push in. And so that's why the medium champ is particularly good for him. But I think that one of the benefits on this map for Xron is that he can use the speed of the slash to almost abuse that fact, where it becomes quite predictable in the sense that you do know where he's going to be. Yes, it's a strong position, and yes, it's very difficult to penetrate, but the speed can be used to great advantage. So I'd like to see Xron be a bit more aggressive in that sense.
Something tells me that Xron might already have that in mind. You know, we've seen in 15 seconds he's already point blank going straight in there with the crouch slide, trying to pepper out as much damage as he can. CNZ quite healthy, but in a bit of a back to the wall situation. Xron doesn't want to challenge it, but he knows that CNZ's not got a rail. You know, that was the good side of the spawn, and now Xron in a position to potentially wait for the spawn. Ooh. Yeah, he looks for it. Looks for the rail, and he can maybe keep that rail away from CNZ even further.
And this is exactly what I want to see out of Xron, is using that speed advantage slash to really overcome the position advantage that CNZ will try to employ with Ranger.
Very good rocket jump. 3 damage, and he swaps to the heavy machine gun. Could have been a rail there, but I think he fancied his chances to get much more damage with the machine gun on the return. Great rail as well, looking for it. There's the teleport, the dire orb, but the situation is indeed dire for CNZ. Very low stack, and the rail. Xron just being in the right place again, getting a perfect spawn trap with the rail. CNZ, no armor to play with, and no orb. I mean, come on, how does he survive this, surely? Oh, he misses the rail!
Oh, no.
Hitting the hard rails and potentially missing the, what some would say was the easy one. Jumps down there, but how is he going to get punished? Oh, no, yes, Xron, die hard. One more hit. Oh, he's out. But is he going to survive?
Bit too greedy from Xron there. Gave up map control because of the fact that he did miss the rail when, as you say, should be an easy rail, but still gave up map control because of it. Nevertheless, still got 2-0, and he pushes up aggressively. I think he knew that he was there as well.
That's a good flick. Looking to get some more damage there with the machine gun. Who's going to win this one? It's going to be Xron again. CNZ sticking around. You know, if he's able to just stay alive just a couple of seconds longer, get that heavy, and then the frag, it would have been a great opportunity to then come back. And the Mega's just about to spawn. If he got the frag now, that would have been an instant potential change of momentum. He goes through the teleporter, does not fear it. Wonderful rocket. But is this fight going to be over? CNZ trying to gauge where he is, taking a lot of LG damage. I actually feel like Xron may have specifically timed going back through that teleporter because he knew CNZ would jump to the health.
Yeah, absolutely. And nice aggression coming out, keeping up the pressure, and that's what he needs to do. Falling back onto those items. And making sure that if CNZ wants to get anything, he's going to take a hell of a lot of damage. And because of that, and because of the speed, there's not really a chance for CNZ at the moment to get back into the game. And Xron's doing a great job now controlling that mid-ground, making sure that CNZ cannot pick up that rail. That's one of the keys for CNZ to get back into the game.
I almost feel like it's the change of strategy. He has had to eventually concede the rail, but there's been this massive focus of heavy machine gun over rail from Xron. He's been using the machine gun for the range fights a lot more than the rail, and it almost seems like because he's keeping the rail away from CNZ, he knows that CNZ hasn't really got a lot of options to fight back with range of his own, so he's just trying to get that constant damage. Maybe sees it as a little bit more beneficial, but
Yeah, and I think the DPS is probably pretty much equal, and so having that consistent damage is always going to be much more of a benefit. And if he does enough, he can use the speed of the slash to capitalize and finish off CNZ. So it's actually a particularly smart move to do that.
A lot of confidence in the heavy machine gun, a weapon that some players do sometimes have trouble with, but so far, and actually, when he's using the machine gun, he was getting constant damage, and now he's swapping to the rail. He's missing a lot more shots than we would otherwise expect. Part of me half thinks maybe there's like some air of confidence here. I know that Xron is not always the most confident player in his own rail.
No, but he's doing enough to, as long as he hits one, he's nullifying the pickups, because CNZ until now hasn't been getting on any armors, not even really the light ones. So hitting one rail was enough. However, this is CNZ's opportunity. He needs to hit something. Stopwatch. He is particularly low. He can go down if Ron hits one more.
But he's looking for it. Hasn't quite been able to hit it. No! Misses the close range flick and the punishment from CNZ. The second he saw that rail didn't connect, he was just ready. More than ready for that cooldown to be punished with a free frag. And the timings, between the heavy and the mega, there's a chunky delay in between. If CNZ can get that rotation going, there's a real potential here to just flip the control.
And much like Nyx, because of the stack differential, Slash will have a hard time. However, Ron has got onto the rail. He just needs to hit one or two and then he's back into it.
Oh, a bit of LG damage, not really enough. The plasma trail's going to run out though, full speed ahead, and minimal damage in return from the rockets too. And taste of your own medicine, Doctor. Fresh off the spawn, gets one of those rails. CNZ, I mean, you're Ranger. You can do that self-damage with a rocket. Who cares?
5 minutes.
Second angle, but
not going to make the same mistake as Ron, though.
Yeah.
But he does mess up the timings, which allows Ron to get onto that heavy.
Oh, springs the trap. Ron maybe thinking he can get in and out, goes in for the super shotgun and almost gets the frag. Just not today. Now, this is a bit alarming for Xron. I think missing some of those rails and some of these shots has given CNZ a little bit of an avenue here. Xron has been laying that pressure on pretty much the same way. It's just been this angle of now you're starting to miss those shots and CNZ isn't. It's very similar to what we saw at the start, only, the players have been flipped on their head. Now it's Xron forced to retreat, and yeah, he's playing a slash, so there is the potential to get out. That rail is going to miss its mark, thankfully for Xron. Isn't going to give up another frag just yet, but with it being 3-3, and CNZ looking like he's the one in the driver's seat so far, does teleport towards the dire orb, goes in for the LG, doesn't get the frag just yet, but he's looking for the rail angle, misses the shot. Xron survives for now, but is it going to be enough? Is he going to turn the tide here? Maybe not. Looks like Xron a little bit all over the place and then doubles back.
Really smart by CNZ then, again, doing the opposite of Ron, not overcommitting to that chase and actually realizing that Ron wanted to double back and completely reading him there. Really smart play by CNZ.
And he's put himself in the lead.
All because of, as you said before, overconfidence by Xron. Going in for the flick rail finish was completely unnecessary.
Would have made for a good highlight reel. We just want to get the top 10 frags of the week. Do it for the compilation.
But now we see this is CNZ's coming out. Strong positioning, holding that mid ground, taking up the items as and when he can, hitting good shots and just falling back onto them until it feels right for him to commit. As you say, it's good discipline, not overcommitting, because it is really easy once you hit a good shot to want to push it.
Dire Orb just to force away Xron, understanding that the Mega's not going to be his, but he can at the very least try and get that heavy. Unfortunately for Xron, a rail's going to come through. CNZ pushing forward. Doesn't even matter that he's got no armor because there's a light down here already. The heavy's been taken, but who cares at this stage because the stack is so extreme for CNZ. And he hits his shots again. More lights, bringing up that stack. Nicely, Xron going through the jump pad. Maybe been a little bit of a mistiming, perhaps. I know he was looking to try and get the Mega and potentially survive long enough, understanding that I'm probably going to get some LG on the way up, but if I get the Mega, I'll survive. But no surviving going to be had now. LG too strong.
No, and the game was just stabilizing, but then CNZ is just playing the items better, making sure that when Ron was going for that heavy armor, he was in and around to hit damage, and when he hit damage, he followed up. When he realized it was enough for the kill, he pushed in again. So, really good standard play by CNZ. Ron, for me, just needs to get onto the rail and start chip away at CNZ because he's not going to be able to compete in these fights that are working in CNZ's favor.
Oh, and he gets the good read on the spawn, reacts accordingly with a free rail. Xron, he gets a light, but at this point, CNZ's not going to care about that. He's looking to make the chase. Less than 2 minutes on the clock and a mammoth amount of work for Xron. It was such a good start for him, but I fear it has completely fallen to pieces. But now, I mean, we'll see if there really is any shred of a hope for anything he can do. Trying to deny this Mega is going to be the start, but there's plenty of more work left to do. But he's getting peppered down by that heavy machine gun that's just ticking him away. Yeah. And I fear there's not enough time to get the job done anymore, ZSX.
No, desperation from Xron there. And the way he played in the mid-game was, I mean, CNZ just took a stranglehold of the map, but Xron didn't do enough to play the distance game. And CNZ was just able to close the angles down, take control of the items, and never let Xron get that foothold. We saw in the first 3 or 4 minutes the way in which Xron was playing, and that's the tempo he wanted to play at. But once he lost control, he needed to revert to a far more defensive game. And he didn't do that effectively. And allowing CNZ map control, allowing CNZ to control that mid-level, you saw how well he played when he's in control.
And that's going to be 100. Perfect little combo there into the rail afterwards, and this is going to at the very least be a 2-0 victory for CNZ. You know, we talk about how he can, depends on how he plays on the day. Today is certainly one of his days, that's for sure. Poor old Xron, though, unfortunately going to have to concede at least a 2-0 here. Has a chance to maybe make it 2-1, so it's going to be better than nothing, but with the form that CNZ's on today, there could easily be a 3-0 at the end of the series.
No, he's playing really well, and Xron hasn't stepped up today. I think it's fair to say so. But as you rightly point out, one more map to go to hopefully redeem himself.
You lose.
Just well played by CNZ.
And it was the second he got control back. You know, it didn't go very well at the very beginning, but why? You know, there was half the element of Xron, I think, having a better spawn because he was on rail side and being able to sort of deny and keep the range, as you mentioned. Just unable to, I think, keep that going. You know, in the second CNZ had the control back, it was all she wrote, really.
And you can see the items are relatively similar. The biggest difference was in the light armors, and that was what CNZ was doing particularly well, was falling back onto those, particularly when he was in control. He was making sure he strangled Xron off the map, didn't really mind letting Xron get potentially the odd mega health. He was always in position to do damage when he was doing it. And that was the difference, really, is that Xron wasn't able to impose himself enough when he was in the lead. Whereas CNZ played a much more strategical and tactical game.
And this was that moment. CNZ looked almost like he wasn't particularly ready for that one, but yeah, Xron, the second he had the moment to go in and make something happen, it was almost like giving it up, unfortunately. And this was just one of those big punishment from CNZ. The second you see a high-octane champion going up against a champion that just has a little bit more, I suppose, traditional play with great punishment potential, you can really sort of see these maps play out this way, you know, where it's crazy movement being used, and then the second the fight happens, like, well, you know, CNZ being a lot more composed, and he has the tools to get damage, on top of just amazing accuracy. You know, he's hitting a lot of his shots, his rails were fantastic, his rockets have been great all day, but you kind of have that extra trump card of the orb. So if you are playing that game of denying those small armors and making sure you're pretty much always way more stacked than Xron, and when Xron finally picks something up, it's not really that beneficial to him because he eats a rail as he takes a mega, or gets hit by a bunch of heavy machine guns, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
And you can see most of those frags he racked up in the mid-game was either Xron running into him or Xron with a bad play. There was, like, CNZ just played a very simple game once he got into control. Take the items, maintain position, but there was a lot of times where Xron was running in without the right stack, without the right weaponry, and CNZ just capitalizing on those mistakes.
There's not a lot of maps picked today between these two players that drastically changed the flow of things either. You know, because the next map is going to be Ruins of Sarnath. It's going to be Ison versus BJ. Another one where it's not really movement focused, but CNZ's got the BJ ready, which is going to be, there's going to be real sort of airs of a ranger. And you know, you look at the important items that get taken here, particularly the heavy, something that I think that CNZ's been a bit more control of. The dual wield on those key locations, where if he's already more composed and he's already just being a lot more, I think, comfortable in these fights, the dual wield is going to just make that a complete nightmare. Yeah,
and that's why BJ is one of the hot picks on this map, and I would definitely favour him over the Ison on a purely purely ability-based format. But I mean, Xron needs to change it up here. Control on this map, you can be really strangled out this map. So Xron needs to do something particularly different.
CNZ gets a fantastic spawn, though. He gets the spawn that grants you both rail and LG at the very beginning. Just sits there and just waits. You know, hits that perfect rail at the very beginning. Going to be somewhat of a message to Xron. Jumps down. Xron, I fear being a bit too predictable with the start. Like CNZ just popping the dual wheel instantly, knowing he's going to go towards LG. A little bit of unfortunate self-damage there. Thankfully, BJ can heal up some of that.
I mean, Xron could have been off the map if he got that rocket jump. Pretty easy one as well. Just a simple mistake.
It happens to the best of us. But what does he do now? I guess that's the question. CNZ in a position where he's got the unholy trinity. You know, he's ready to rock with his weapons. It's just going to be an element of control, and it's going to be a little bit tricky to establish complete control as the items both have an identical spawn. Is Xron going to try and be a little bit more aggressive here and deny it? Actually going through the teleporter. I fear that he's playing into CNZ a little bit too much here. You know, the heavy's just about to spawn. He's died at the perfect time for CNZ to now wait for the spawn and decide what order he wants to take the two items. That was the best case scenario to get both of them and strangle Xron out of the map. Dual wheel's going to punish. Absolutely is going to result in a frag here. And now Xron off the spawn. There's nothing he can do to stop the heavy from being taken. No,
and that's what you can do well on this map, as
perfect
you say.
Play,
it's just take that mid ground, and then you have control of both. He's got a great split on the items now.
That's a nice chase down on the teleporter. Knows the angle and he's ready for it. Xron has only just started, but just far too aggressive, I fear. And it's kind of been this way since the map first began. Less than 2 minutes and 4 frags have already gone. This map might be over before it's even started to sec.
Yeah, I mean, this is looking bad now. If 10 seconds, 10 seconds between the items means CNZ has all the time in the world to make sure that Xron can't get either one of the major weapons and then get onto the items as well.
This has been a perfect case scenario for CNZ. Dual wheel gets popped for the rockets all over the place. Xron on top of, I think, this a little bit too predictable for CNZ. When the fights are happening, he's not really able to land a lot of damage either. It has been, just for lack of a better term, a complete disaster.
It is, yeah. And there is...
Oh, no! Again! Looking for a third. No need to overcomplicate, though. The LG will do it. Hits the rail, but he's got some health bubbles nearby. BJ's got that natural passive. He's on heavy in the first place, and there's plenty of stack to retreat to.
Yeah, but what that rail does is it does nullify his aggression slightly because it sets him back to a comparable stack. And if Xron can hit the next rail, which he can't, then there was a chance he might have been forced to back off.
And this is the problem. Rails that are being missed but are happily being returned by CNZ. There's more denial there on the light. And jumping down, there wasn't even a rail to jump onto because CNZ had literally just been there. And that's the suicide for the self-damage. I mean, at that point, he had to try and do something if he'd missed his shot. This has just been a disaster. 8 to -1. Is Xron even going to get a frag that's not himself here?
I mean, Xron's barely blinked and it's already 9 frags in it. Almost looks like he's...
Oh, he's got 2 of them! He's got 2 of them! He's looking for it. He's out. He's out. That's fine. Yeah. Crisis averted. Never mind.
There's nothing that CNZ needs to do at this stage. He could just kind of back off and play positional and still win this game if he plays smart. Can Xron get his first item?
I'm not even, yeah, I almost feel like he half hesitated there. Where he jumped past, obviously, the timing was 100% there. Finally gets the frag! The rocket's gonna do it. There's
but he is very low. He will pick up the Mega, but all it does is offset the original damage. And there is a good split though. So he can use the weaponry advantage, knowing that CNZ doesn't have that rocket. What he needs to do is try and force a close combat fight, and that's exactly why he's pushing down into here early. Because if CNZ, if CNZ is around, then Xron has a weaponry advantage. Nevertheless, CNZ playing positional, gets some good rails to get out of there, and is able to back off to pick up the rocket.
Yes, a lot of... I was quite the expensive way to try and deny the Mega, though. Understanding he was already weak, and he opted to go for the rocket jump. It was the fastest way he could reach that point. Unfortunately, that was just quickly dealt with, and CNZ looks like he's re-establishing control again. He's already got all the weapons he needs, and he's quite literally just sitting there and waiting for Xron to jump on him. That's the second time that's happened now.
He knows that Xron's going to be pushing in. Slightly frustrated, I think is the word, but you can see the way in which CNZ regained control is the complete opposite to the way in which Xron was playing. Was able to pick up the rail, play positional, make sure he dealt damage on the heavy item pickup, and then was able to take position on the upper ground to make sure he cut off those paths to the Mega Health. So just a a really simple difference in the playstyle so far.
And this is that scary moment for Xron where the 5-minute warning has already been ticked off and he's down 12 frags. So this is actually a very early desperation period where if you now try and play a reserve game and look for your moment, you don't actually have a lot of time to make a comeback. Even if it's a big ask to just get 12 frags back to back to back, especially against the CNZ that has been on this real train of momentum the entire series. Xron hasn't really got time to make anything happen anymore.
No, and CNZ is doing enough damage in between the major items to make sure that Xron has to back off. I mean, it's taken 6 minutes, but now the kind of pace of the game has slowed down a little bit. This is the way it should have been played 1 minute into the game, not 6 minutes.
Absolutely. And it's full speed ahead. A couple more rockets will do it. It's just going from bad to worse now. Xron, just time is not his friend at all anymore. I dare say, like, is there even time to make a comeback?
I mean, that's kind of the way this map goes. Like, I know it looks bad for Xron, but the fact that CNZ got 2 super clean frags off the bat and then maintained control and then was able to bully Xron off the spawn, they're without, like, A, little bit of luck, and B, absolute perfect play.
It was done so quickly, wasn't it?
There was actually literally nothing Xron could have done in most of those situations, to be fair to him. By which point then the frustration kicked in and then he gave away too many frags. But it was just super clean frags off the bat, which allowed CNZ to get into the position.
It's a demonstration for me of just the skill of CNZ. The fact that this map instantly began. He got a very favourable spawn straight off the bat. I think a lot of people like getting the LG and the rail in one, but okay. There is a little bit of a temporary slip up there. Just 14 frags left to go.
Yes, I hope Xron can do something so I eat my words, but I don't think it's his day today.
Yeah, I just feel like 3 minutes to get what was 14 frags at the time. And then you have to just factor in how well CNZ's been playing. But at no point is he ever even interested in going for like those, quote-unquote highlight reel moments.
No.
Because even now, he's 16 frags in the lead and he lands that close-range rail. He could have gone for a second. I would have expected maybe a Wenger or a Razy to stick with the rail, but at all times, even when he's 1,000% in the lead, it is efficiency non-stop. And that's what's made him so scary from start to finish.
No, and you're exactly right. Efficiency and discipline is...
Uh-oh, here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. What? We were literally just talking about this, and now what's going on?
But efficiency and discipline, apart from the last 5 seconds, has been the moral of the story for the past 3 maps. And
that was literally just him just saying, "You what, mate?
Yeah.
What'd you say? What'd you say? No, I can have fun too. I can have fun too. I've not even got a shirt on, bro. Like, come on."
To be fair, we haven't seen CNZ tested today. He hasn't been out of control. We haven't seen the full rounded game of what he can offer. But what we can say is when he's in control, he knows what to do. He knows how to play safe. And he's got good aim as well to back it all up.
Yeah, this has just been a perfect demonstration of how good CNZ is currently shaping up to be. And after such a long break away, this has been one hell of a way to come back into Stage 2 in general of the Quake Pro League. If this is going to be a decisive win, 20-2.
I think this will push him a decent bit up above Xron in the leaderboards now as well, if I'm not mistaken.
And considering CNZ started this as a late bloomer, he was one of our players that came in from the Stage 1 finals. There was no opportunity for him to build up points prior. It was, how well he did for relegation, however well he did in the bracket of that tournament, and then the rest of Stage 2. But this is a great way to reassert your dominance. 3-20. Potential there for CNZ to get even more, and I think he's going full speed ahead, looking in. LGs for days, melted away. See you later, turret. Get out of my face. But if you're Xron here, it's just an opportunity for reflection. This isn't the first time Xron has suffered the defeat. It's quite a crushing one for him. But he's been able to get back up on, in future weeks. And you would never have guessed that he had a disaster week prior. This is just, if anything, he just has to see it as a learning experience, right? These are the tapes that he needs to assess. The real moments where the maps went wrong, the moments he potentially gave up some frags. Why did it happen? How did it happen? And how can I make sure it doesn't happen again?
Exactly. It is a learning experience, and there's no shame in losing to CNZ. I think the frustration is the way in which it happened. There was some, particularly on Blood Covenant, there were some moments where Xron could have played the map very differently. I feel in maps 1 and 3, CNZ just played great, to be honest. At least the first 2 minutes of this map. The rest was just a bit of a clown show. And yeah, it was not what I expected from Xron, but all credit to CNZ. Played extremely well.
A great result for him, and dominant. And just look at the level of control too, particularly around those heavies. And that's just one of those points that CNZ's been able to just bully his way around the entirety of this entire series. And I think we've kind of almost said everything that can be said about that.
Yeah.
Just pure, I think it was just, you compare just the level-headedness. And that's really where it came from. CNZ, from the first frag of map 1 to the last frag of map 3, at no point did his composure ever change.
Not at all. And yeah, it's all credit to the way in which he plays the game. It was great discipline throughout, spot on timing. As we said, some good shots. Yeah, I mean, it's simple and clean. That's why it's nice to watch.
It's just, yeah, the term efficiency, I think, really strikes me with CNZ today. You just look at all of these frags. Like, most of the frags, they're not particularly like these crazy flashy frags. There's nothing, with the exception of some of them. Some of them were absolutely disgusting. But
I think, as you pointed out, right, that it was kind of almost over from an early stage, and yet he was still playing that. It's not over till it's over. I'm going to play my style kind of duel. It wasn't kind of almost joking around until 7-8 minutes in. So
yeah.
It's just good to see sometimes when it's people play that textbook. There's nothing too flashy about it. There's nothing you look at it and go, I can't do that. It's really basic textbook dueling.
Yeah, and you look at the champion picks throughout the course of this series as well, CNZ's picks, there was nothing really kind of against the grain. There was nothing flashy there either. They were 3 champions that are very kind of traditional and designed to do their job effectively. It was 3 mediums all the way through. You just look at the picks. It was Visor with the piercing sight, and how well did he use the Visor piercing sight to perfectly counteract the way Xron played the Ranger versus the Slash. You'd think that Slash would run rings around you almost no matter what champion you pick. Managed to make the Ranger look like there was literally nothing to worry about. And then we look at this final map where the dual wield was just a complete nightmare for Xron. And I think when you have the 3 medium champions, I guess you maybe go into each map with a very similar flow. You've got the same movement speed, you have the same stats.
Exactly. I play in a quite similar way. I like that movement style. I like the fact that it feels very similar to the previous editions of Quake, and then, as you say, like, it doesn't change your playstyle in any way, shape or form. Obviously, not all of the champions are particularly optimal for every single map, but they're not weak either. And apart from the piercing sight, I don't think the abilities really matter to CNZ. They were almost a luxury. The piercing sight, and then we can see why Visor is such a tier 1 pick now. But apart from the piercing sight, as we said, they were luxuries. He used the basic skill sets of the champions to play his style of duel. He didn't rely on the abilities. He didn't rely on any of the fluff around them.
Yeah, the abilities kind of almost made the fights a bit faster.
Exactly.
But they were fights he was already going to win.
Yeah.
It was like, I've already got a better position than you. You've already got a better stack. I just have 2 lightning guns now instead of 1.
Yeah.
Which is what
So
we
it was
saw.
all about positioning, all about items, and then the rest kind of fell into his hands.
Well, that was, if anything, a perfect way to get back into the Quake Pro League. Week number 6. Well done to CNZ for a dominating performance, and for Xron, we'll see you back next week. We're going to go for a quick break and set up the next set of matches. This is Week 6 of Quake Pro League. Don't go anywhere.